Good morning, viewers and listeners. We are live and welcome to the NFL Draft Bible Tailgate Show. Of course, we are partnered with Fan Nation, powered by Sports Illustrated. I am here with my esteemed panel, dripping with talent. And of course, I am your host, Big Law, Lawrence Johnson. Of course, when you see the panel, you see top left, we got my man. Oh, we switched the program. There we go. We got the guy on top. That is our senior scout. That is Lorenz, the twin line weaver. In the middle, right there, we got my man Slick Alec Polito. Then we got the Wonder Boy, Hunter Long, in the building as well. So, guys, how are you doing today? I'll start with you, Lorenz. What do you got to say in an opening statement?
Oh man, I'm doing great. It's a lot of fun being back here on the tailgate show as every Saturday in college football. But I feel like we're really going down the home stretch here of college football, so I'm really trying to enjoy every single Saturday. It's just a couple more weeks here in November before it's all gonna be over, and then we got the bowl games and playoffs. But it's coming at us quick. Draft season's coming at us quick. We're getting a lot of the new tape coming in, which is awesome, and I'm ready to get into it. How are you today, Big Law?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. It's a. Uh, I look at the schedule. It's not that great of a week for matchups. There's only one ranked teams that are two going against each other. But football is football. This means this is a great day for upsets. That's what that means. So, what about you, my man Alec Polito? What you got, man, for this your opening statement?
I am doing good. We got the Conference One esports finals for the lower division today, so be working on that later. But hey, watching some football in the background because you can't stray away from the football side here. I'm excited for today. We got a couple fun matchups to talk about draft wise. Maybe not super fun ranked wise, but we're gonna start to get into a couple of those as well as the Big Ten comes to a conclusion, the SEC comes to a conclusion. So I'm excited.
Absolutely, man. And of course, we got Hunter. What's going on, Hunter? What is your opening statement for this Saturday?
Um, man, I haven't been on the show in a little bit. Last week I had to be at my radio station at 6:30 in the morning, which wasn't great, but we got through it. So that was not the call time for today. So I'm just happy to be here again.
All right, man. Beautiful, guys. So, yeah, everybody, this is my panel. Of course, this is season 2, episode 10. And, whenever we get one of these glorious weekends of football, and like you said, Lorenz, it's starting to wind down. I feel a little bit sad, but it seems like a lot of the meaningful games come out. We just had the rankings come out for the bowl championship. So, we'll be able to talk a little bit about that as well. Maybe at the end of the show, we wanted to throw in some opinions on that and what teams are left out. Of course, it's early, but there are some teams that are already whining about being left out. We still got some weeks left. But before we go further, we're going to talk about teams that got helmet stickers for games that were on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, guys. We had 4 weekdays of college football. And I want to say we had 8 games, during those days. So having that many days, I need to hear some of your helmet stickers. I'm going to start with you, Hunter. I'm coming to you. Who gets your helmet sticker for this week's games?
I'm gonna bring it down to the MAC. Let's go with Bowling Green for this week. They get their first MAC win against Buffalo on Saturday, 56-44, season high in points. I know Buffalo did not have their backup quarterback, but I don't care. I'm still giving Bowling Green their love. Their quarterback, Matt McDonald, had career high 4 touchdowns and 263 air yards on just 13 of 19 attempts, or 13 completions, 19 attempts. Very efficient. And then running back two, Terrion Stewart, had 170 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns on just 11 carries. Bowling Green will probably not get mentioned the rest of the show or any other show, but I just wanted to shed light on the Falcons while we can.
All right, that's an awesome analysis there. And shout out to Bowling Green. And it's in Kentucky, and they play some good football there as well. So Lorenz, I'm coming to you. Who gets your helmet sticker for this weekday's games?
Yeah, I'm gonna go out west. Last night we had the Stanford versus Utah matchup, and Utah obviously won that convincingly. But their star linebacker, Devin Lloyd was one of the best seniors in the entire country, had 9 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, a sack, a pass deflection, and 1 pick six. So talk about changing the game as a linebacker with those types of numbers, showing up in the backfield, playing the run, getting after the quarterback, putting the ball in the end zone himself. I mean, just doing it all for this Utah team. I think Devin Lloyd's someone who projects as that modern-day Will kind of guy that you can drop into zones frequently. That's a good coverage defender. He's getting better and better and better playing the run. And what I really like about him is his improvement from year to year. You go from 2019 to that very short 2020 to another big step now for 2021. The trend is definitely pointing upwards for Devin Lloyd. He's really taking the coaching. He's getting better all the time. And he's someone who has that athleticism and the instincts to fly around in space, which you really need to do nowadays as a linebacker, can affect the game in a variety of ways.
Give me a perspective, day 1, 2, or 3.
Right now I'm going to say 2, but if there's a linebacker that could sneak into the first, I think he's one of the 2 or 3 names that I will mention. It's just not that great of a class up top. So I would say realistically probably early 2, but hey, we know with these linebackers, if it's a thin position, someone might come up and go try to grab him in the first.
Wow, that's a high praise coming from our senior scout. Now let's get to our scout coordinator, my man Alec Polito. You talk to me. Who gets your helmet sticker for this week's games?
Yeah, I just gotta say though that Devin Lloyd was my number 1 pick here, but Lorenz got to him first, so that's all right. Because as long as he's getting mentioned, I'm gonna go with the freshman wide receiver from Northern Illinois, Trayvon Rudolph, with one of the most ridiculous wide receiver stat lines I have ever seen. 14 receptions, 309 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And I don't. It's just insane to me that this was the actual stat line. But for the freshman wide receiver for Northern Illinois, someone who maybe we have to keep an eye on in a couple of years, because that is impressive to say the least.
Wow, that is very impressive. I don't know if I've seen that the past 2-3 years. I mean, I remember, Hawaii and some of those WAC teams used to produce receivers, and some of those older Pac-10 teams, they used to produce receivers catching that many balls at that many yards, but and even some of those SMUs. But to see that many yards, for one person, and it's really impressive. So yeah, we'll have to put him on the draft tracker. So we got some really good previews, guys. Of course, like I said, there's not that many ranked against ranked games, teams going against each other. So what we'll do here is we're going to get into our first preview. And today we have Michigan State against Purdue at 3:30 on ABC. Michigan is a 3-point favorite, and this is feels like it could be a trap game for Michigan State coming off a huge win. My man Hunter, talk to me about this game. What do you feel is going to happen? What's your preview?
Well, you're absolutely right. If you're Michigan State, make sure to drink up on some Pedialyte, because this does not want to be the hangover game if you're the Spartans, because we saw a couple weeks ago Purdue played spoiler after Iowa got a big win against Penn State, and then they lost to the Boilermakers too. So if you're Michigan State, keep it simple. Don't turn the ball over and just hand it off to number 5 and ride off into the sunset. And then if you're Purdue, how the hell do you stop Kenneth Walker? This dude has been an absolute terror. He might have had his Heisman moment last week against Michigan, playing probably his best game of his career under the brightest lights so far. And then I think if you're Purdue also, you're going to have a hard time running the ball. They have a good front 7, Michigan State, but they have one of the worst pass defenses in the Big Ten. They let up more yards per game in the air than any other team. So Aiden O'Connell's got to make sure to air that thing out, get the ball to his playmakers on the outside. That's not what Purdue can do. Unfortunately, though, I think that Purdue probably struck gold with Iowa. I don't think they're going to do it again with Michigan State, despite being home and being a solid team. So I do think Michigan State does pull this one off, and as of right now, prove their number 3 ranking.
That's going to be awesome. And of course, Purdue has, Michigan State. I don't think they've ever been ranked in the college bowl series. Now that they've been doing these rankings for the past almost 10 years, I believe now we're almost up to almost 10 years. And I don't remember seeing Michigan State ranked in the top 4 ever.
I think did they make it one year though? Weren't they like the 4th seed and they like got killed by Alabama or something with Connor Cook there? I could be wrong. I don't know if that was.
You know what? You're probably right.
It was
on
like really early. It was like one of the first
Yeah,
years.
That was 2015. Then they got whooped
Yeah,
by
it was like one of the first
Alabama,
years.
led by like Jacob Coker.
Yeah. What a name. Way to pull that out the archives, Lorenz. But yeah,
Couldn't forget about that one, man. But that was the Derrick Henry year too. But
yeah, that's right.
it was
But yeah,
definitely Jake Coker. That was his name.
Those used to be the Alabama quarterbacks. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it used to really be wild. Then they got Tua and all these guys in there, and now they're just getting these studs.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, Michigan State definitely has an opportunity to solidify that number 3 ranking, and I'm interested to see how much Purdue. I really think Purdue can surprise them. I think that they have an opportunity to win. Anything you wanted to add to that, Polito?
Yeah, I mean, this is, I just want to give a quick shout out, and I know Hunter already did, to Kenneth Walker. That's what you come to Michigan State for, that Michigan State game, and he, ice in the veins, put up an amazing performance leading into that win. And people can argue that maybe Michigan State doesn't deserve to be number 3, but at the end of the day, if they go undefeated and win the Big Ten, they're in the playoff, so they've got a spot. I think that it's not a bad ranking for them to be at number 3 now. Different argument could be made on whether they can compete with Alabama or Georgia. I don't think that they can, but putting them at 3 is not a terrible choice, because as long as they win out, they're in.
Yeah. So I'm really excited about the result of this game, and I'll see. For some reason, I feel like I want to root for Purdue. Just because they've already pulled off a big upset this year, and I don't know if Michigan State. I mean, they're talented, running back wise, offensively, but I don't know if their defense will be able to hold up. But on to the next game here. Go ahead, Lorenz.
I was just gonna say, hey man, Purdue, they got some guys. They got some dudes that can beat you. I mean, George Karlaftis coming off the edge. He's a really powerful rusher. They've been double and triple teaming this kid. They need to add some more players to that defensive line that can make a difference one-on-one, so they can shift some attention away from him. But and then also David Bell, we saw it in the Iowa game. I do think Michigan State is a better team than Iowa was. I think Mel Tucker is doing an outstanding job. Let's give some love to him. I mean, that gutsy call on 4th and 4 with that slot fade they had there in the last game, and that comeback against Michigan, that was pretty awesome. But Purdue can beat you. I think Purdue can beat almost anyone. Maybe not the top 2, but besides those 2 teams, I think any given Saturday they can give you some troubles. And I wouldn't be surprised if this one was closer for a little bit longer than what people might expect. What'd you say the line was? I think it was just Michigan State
-3,
right? Yeah, I think that's very representative. I mean, I'm still taking Michigan State there. I would have probably said at like 4.5, but I understand why they have that line there.
Yeah, I really think Purdue can possibly pull off the upset. And like you said, they can get after get after the quarterback, and that's the name of the game. When you get to these higher level games, and we'll see how that shakes out. 3:30 p.m. on ABC. Next game we got is the only ranked game, team versus team today. It's the number 13 Auburn War Eagle or Tiger, whatever you want to call yourselves, against the number 14 Texas A&M Aggies. That's at 3:30 p.m. as well on CBS. It is a 4.5-point favorite. Is Texas A&M. I'm coming to you, Lorenz, on this preview. You got to give me an idea of what's going to happen in this game. A lot of eyes are going to be on this game just because of the ranking. What's up?
Yeah, I mean the fighting Jimbo Fishers there at home at Kyle Field. They've sort of found their groove after a rough start to the season. Have Calzada now in there, quarterback who's been a lot better than Haynes King, and they obviously pulled off the big upset against number 2 Alabama. But this is the only ranked game, as you said. Let's go to Auburn first. What makes this team? Why are they a top 15 team in the country? I think draft-wise, if you look at their backfield, a quarterback, Bo Nix, running back, Tank Bigsby. Bigsby is a sophomore. Bo Nix is a junior. I think that's a look ahead to next year's draft, the 2023 draft. I'm not expecting – Bigsby isn't eligible. Bo Nix, I'm not expecting to come out, to be completely honest with you. But he's taken some strides this year. He's been pretty dynamic, making plays outside of structure and making things happen for this offense. Bigsby, Texas A&M, they just can't they just can't let him get going because he's a big man and he's fast and he will lower that shoulder and he will wear you out as a defense. The second and third level of the defense do not want to see number 4 a whole lot because if he gets ahead of steam, gets through that first level of the defense, man, good luck stopping him. And then that Auburn secondary, that's a great unit to watch really week in and week out. Roger McCrary is the leader of that group, the senior cornerback who's highly regarded amongst NFL circles. Smoke Monday, a big safety, who I think at the very least is going to be a very good special teamer. He's going to face off against junior tight end Jalen Weidermeyer today, who's another guy that might end up declaring. I think big matchup for a guy like Smoke Monday. Can you show in a couple of reps that you're probably going to get against Jalen Weidermeyer that you can man up against tight ends? That's something that's a make it quality for a guy like him. Show that you can transition that athleticism at that size that you have into capable coverage skills against one of the better tight ends in the country. Nehemiah Pritchett, another underclassman. He's very sound technically. I think there's some long speed concerns. We'll see how he's going to test, if he's going to come out this year, next year, but definitely a draft relevant player. And then linebackers, Kobe McLean. I mean, talk about facing the gauntlet. Last week, you play a great game against this Lane Kiffin Ole Miss offense that does so much to confuse the eyes of linebackers. One of the toughest offenses to play for linebackers, and he had a great game. I think 14 tackles, 2 sacks, a couple other numbers. He's not taking on this Jimbo Fisher offense that does much of the same. We saw it in the Alabama game where you had those Alabama linebackers looking around sometimes like, what just happened, right? And we'll see if he can continue mastering his task against these difficult offenses. But he's going to face off against these Aggie playmakers out of the backfield, out of the slot. Isaiah Aniyah Smith first. He was a running back last year. They move him out to the slot. He can do a lot of things. He's that gadget-type player who's super dynamic. At times, you got to roll the film in slow motion to truly appreciate all the things that are going on in his movements. I mean, it's absolutely crazy how twitched up he is, how good of an athlete. Isaiah Spiller, he's a starting running back, sneakily putting together a great season. He's been excellent really every single game. He's been productive. He's a tough runner. He gets the job done. Nothing super fancy, I don't think, except for a couple tackles that he'll break. But he's just a very good player at the college level. They got offensive lineman Kenyon Green, who's played everywhere except center, I feel like. He's a destroyer of worlds, going to be one of the better guards in the NFL for a long time to come. Similar with DeMarvin Leal on the defensive side of the line. You don't really know where you're playing, but a freak athlete. Incredible tools. Might not be a year 1 player in the NFL, maybe not a year 2 kind of guy, but he's just got those type traits and that type athleticism at 290 pounds that you just can't teach. And then I think for the game pick, finally getting there because this is a loaded one, as with all these SEC matchups. I think Auburn has the better offense. Texas A&M has the better defense, but Texas A&M's defense has been offense has been getting stronger, and I think thanks to the home field advantage, I think the Aggies narrowly squeeze this one out, but it should be one of the better games of the day for sure.
Yeah, I think Texas A&M Auburn. I mean, I think it's an unexpected, a good game. This time of the year. I didn't think Auburn or Texas A&M will really be here. Competing in the SEC the way that they are, but they're both ranked, and we're definitely want to see the results of this. Hunter, anything you wanted to add to this? Go ahead, Lorenz.
Nah, go ahead, Hunter. You got it.
Well, it's funny you say that home field advantage, the 12th man that the Aggies have there, because they've never beaten Auburn at home. They've never done it, which is a fun fact. So I'm curious to see if they can pull it off today. This is a big win for both teams because both of them are really hot. There's a reason they're ranked back-to-back. And like we probably all agree, this might be the game of the week.
Okay, I think so too. With the teams both being ranked, I agree. Alex, like Polito, anything you want to add to that?
I mean, Lorenz kind of alluded to it, which is important here. Is this Texas A&M team was a team that I think most of us thought was going to be heavily competing in that SEC with how much talent that they had, and they kind of disappointed to start the year. But they've caught a groove, and with the amount of talent that this Texas A&M team has, they can continue to climb. Now, obviously, I don't think that they can get into the playoff, but a New Year's Six bowl is still very reasonable for this Texas A&M team with the amount of talent that they have.
Yeah,
no doubt. And I was just gonna say, when I almost cut off Hunter, I think whoever wins this is looking pretty for a big time bowl game. Maybe not a top 4 playoff appearance anymore, but whoever wins this game is going to be playing in a big bowl and is going to make a good name for their school.
This is going to be really cool to see this. Only ranked game of the day, 3:30 on CBS. Next game we got here is probably maybe the 2 top quarterbacks in this draft class. You got Liberty going against Ole Miss. It's a quick game. It's coming up at noon. It's going to be on the SEC network. Ole Miss is favored by 9.5. I'm going to come to you, Mr. Alex Slick Polito. What's up with this game, man? I mean, some people, this may be the most watched game of the weekend, really, because of, there's not that many ranked games, but you may want to see the 2 top quarterbacks duke it out. Talk to me about this game, Malik Willis and Ole Miss. How in the world did these 2 teams, first of all, get together? An SEC team against a lowly team from Virginia with hardly any football lineage.
Yeah, during the week, Hunter texted me and was like, I had to say I accidentally gave myself this game because I definitely didn't, I didn't want to have to take all the fun in talking about these 2 quarterbacks. But no, I mean, storyline behind this game, Hugh Freeze, former Ole Miss coach, out now at Liberty. Little storyline there is, there's some allegations, but now he's back in Mississippi to coach this game, right, against probably the wonder boy here, Lane Kiffin for Ole Miss. But look, the big storyline in this one, and I'll get into other players too, is two potential first-round quarterbacks in a year that is completely wide open. We do not know who's going to be the first quarterback taken. It's going to be all team preferences. It's going to be all team fits on as to what quarterbacks end up in the first round. But 2 guys who have a really good shot at it in this game, Malik Willis versus Matt Corral. For Malik Willis, what's going to be majorly important is putting up good tape against an SEC team. Now, he has been phenomenal all year. I think he had 1 bad game, but when we talk about Malik Willis, he has to do so much for this team. And I think Kellen said this last week, and it's just so true. Malik Willis is Liberty. Liberty will go as far as Malik Willis can take them. So he has had to overperform in games, and we've seen how that can negatively affect quarterbacks when they are the prime offense and there's really nothing around them. And I'm not saying that's not disrespect to any of the Liberty players, but he's not playing in the SEC. He's playing against lower level teams. Now he gets a chance to play against an SEC team. This is going to be a huge tape for Malik Willis there. Sorry, go ahead, Big Law.
No, go ahead. And what about Matt Corral?
Right. So then Matt Corral here, this is going to be a huge test for him against a Liberty defense that has been very good against all the teams they've played so far. I mean, they've had a couple hiccups, but they really have been a dominant team, really good against the pass, which is, Matt Corral has been very good at running the ball, very good at passing the ball, but against the pass, this Liberty defense, guys like Deron Lowe and Skylar Thomas have been really good against the pass. Another huge game for Matt Corral under the lights with all the scouts on him. Last year, Matt Corral had some problems in pressure situations. Had a couple games where he threw like 6 interceptions, high interception counts. This year, he's been pretty even keeled, but you've got all the NFL attention coming out to this game. There are a lot of teams in attendance. The pressure could get to him. This is a big game for both quarterbacks. Malik Willis showed that it doesn't matter what talent's around you. You can still put up a big game against guys like Sam Williams on this Ole Miss defense that are really good players. Now, the Ole Miss defense has been a little bit shaky this year, but Sam Williams is a guy who we talked about on our show on Thursday, Lorenz and I, a guy who could end up on that day 2 range, and could be a really solid edge rusher in this class. Matt Corral is going to have to rely on guys like Jerrion Ealy, to get going in the run game here. But this is a big game for both these guys. I'm going to take Ole Miss to win this game, but I just want to say if Malik Willis puts up a huge game against an SEC opponent right here, it is going to be, of all the quarterbacks in this class, it's going to be the hardest for him to not be a first-round selection because their talent is real with Malik Willis. There's a lot of things that he has to work on, but so does every quarterback in this class. it would be really hard to keep him out of the first round with all the talent that he possesses. But I still take Ole Miss to win it just because they have way more talent.
Well, I can tell you, Malik Willis, definitely a twitched up quarterback is kind of what he is. I mean, he doesn't have the size, that traditional quarterbacks, but the way they're running offenses nowadays in college and the pros, he doesn't have to be the traditional 6'3" and up as far as height goes. But the athleticism and having the feet that he does is what's going to really is really what makes a difference in him being a difference maker. I'm coming to you, Lorenz. You got to talk to me, man, senior scout. So we got two of the top quarterbacks and probably the two main quarterbacks who are going to get drafted in the top 10, probably top 15. Talk to me about this game, man. In particular, the talent that's coming out. And like I said, I think most of the eyes are going to be on this game, out of all the games that are going to be on today.
Yeah, Broncos general manager, I just read a couple minutes ago or right before hopping on the show, is going to be out there at the game. So that's a team that might be looking after a quarterback. And what other game would you go to if you were? But for sure, I wouldn't. I mean, I agree with you that Malik Willis, his height, he's not 6'4", 6'5". He doesn't have that kind of height, but he's not a small guy. He's a muscular kid. He's very well built. He definitely puts in time in the weight room, which helps him. If you're running around a lot, you're going to take some hits. You're going to want a player and a quarterback with that kind of work ethic. But yeah, it's a big one. I mean, both these guys, I think, have struggled in similar areas and have similar things that make them very desirable prospects. If you talk about the raw talent, running ability to extend plays out of structure. And I think Matt Corral's been a little bit better executing, but as Alex said, it's easier for a quarterback in Lane Kiffin's scheme to do that, to trust that scheme, to trust his playmakers, because at the end of the day, you do have Ole Miss playmakers and not Liberty kind of guys. So I think Malik Willis has been forcing it a little bit here and there, and he can't afford to do that today because sometimes it works. Sometimes you get a Johnny Manziel type performance, but it's just not something that works consistently really at a level of football as high as this. I'm just going to call it SEC football, right? It's just not something that consistently works. You got to make the layups. You got to make the easy plays easy. That's going to be big for Malik Willis, not just today, before his career going forward. I think his traits might even be he's even faster. He's got the tiny bit bigger of an arm. I think his floor is a little bit lower, but his ceiling is also higher. We'll see what kind of Malik Willis shows up today. It's really going to be interesting. This is the best defense that he's going to face during this season. So it's just a big game. Everybody's going to want to watch this one. Everybody's going to want to see this one. These defensive linemen, Tavius Robinson, Sam Williams, Tariqius Teasdale, they're not as easy to run away from as a couple of the other players that Liberty has faced. It's a huge game, especially for Malik Willis. I think not so much for Matt Corral because he's continuing to face these SEC defenses, just simple as that. He should come out and have a great one. If he doesn't, I think that's when it gets concerning for Matt Corral. So in that sense, the pressure's on him. But if Malik Willis can make enough plays to keep Liberty in this game throughout the second half, into the second half, here for a little bit, that's going to be really good on his resume.
Absolutely. And I can tell you both quarterbacks, of course, naturally lead their teams in lead their teams in passing, but they also lead their teams in rushing. So you're going to see some shows. These guys are going to put on some shows out here, and and they're short. Both of the quarterbacks are short. Corral is at 6 feet, and he's kind of slight at 200 pounds. Of course, Malik Willis, like you said, he's 6'1", 215. He's actually the bigger quarterback at the smaller school. So this is definitely going to be an interesting game, when we're talking about these prospects. And Hunter, anything you want to add to this important game?
Yeah, well, for every Josh Allen and Justin Herbert, there's a Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson too. Like the size of the quarterback, of course, ideally you want that big, strong arm guy. But if you can make plays, you make plays, and that's what these two quarterbacks have done all season long. I think Liberty can score 30 and still lose by over 20 points. Ole Miss's offense in general is just really, really explosive. They're a way better team. I think Liberty can play a good game and still lose, despite having a very good defense like Alec alluded to. I believe they're 10th in the country in yards allowed per game, but Ole Miss's offense is another beast. But I will say, their top 3 wideouts for the Rebels have been going through injury and suffering them throughout the entire week. I'm not sure who's playing or to what capacity, but definitely something to keep an eye out for.
All right. Well, I can tell you at noon today on the SEC network, you're going to have this game, and really exciting. The game that I'm going to cover next, I'll talk about, and this is another game that's at noon. So I'm going to have my clicker going back and forth, and I'm going to see if I can bring up some of my sports mix where I have 4 and 5 games on at one time. I'm going to have the number 9 Wake Forest Deacon Demons going against the UNC Tar Heels. That game is at noon, as I said, on ABC. UNC is a 2.5-point favorite. I'm really skeptical of that. There must be some money on that game, and I'm not sure how that even came out of in that. I guess they're giving UNC the benefit of the doubt because they're home. But if I told you a quarterback with the name Sam and the last initial H was going to be the better quarterback at this point of the year, you would have definitely thought it was Sam Howell, but it's not. It's Sam Hartman. Okay. Sam Hartman is leading these Wake Forest to a historic year. They've never been 8-0, as far as I can tell in my records at this point of the football year, and they are actually number 9, and they're climbing, and they are trying to become one of the teams as far as the Big 5 conference, Power 5 conference, to make it to this championship, this bowl championship series. So. Sam Howell, of course, has struggled this year. They are 4-4, and I'll continue on with UNC. Of course, Sam Howell, 2,100 yards passing, 19 touchdowns, still putting up some good yards throwing the ball and touchdowns. The top running back, Ty Chandler, senior, he has 671 yards, 9 TDs. Still kind of, keeping the running that you're used to seeing from North Carolina when they had those 2 dynamic running backs. He's not quite what they are, but he's still productive, putting up yards and touchdowns. The one player who is dynamic, who is stellar, is, I believe he's a freshman, Josh Downs, who is absolutely electric. He has 979 yards through 8 games, 8 touchdowns. The guy is probably the premier slot. He is the premier slot, I think, on the East Coast. I'm not talking SEC related. I just think maybe in the East Coast, he may be the premier slot in college football right now. He's just electric. They throw him short bubble screens, and the kid will take it 60 yards, 50 yards. I've seen him take it to the house, and I'm just looking forward to seeing how well they do. Now they do have a pretty good linebacker in Cedric Gray with 46 tackles, and he's going to make some noise. Of course, he has a huge job trying to stop this slow mesh offense that it irritates me to death to watch with this Wake Forest team, but it's highly effective, in what they do. And then, of course, you can't leave out one of their top cornerback from last year, their 5-star cornerback, Tony Grimes, who came in and has the most pass deflections on the team. He's got a huge job coming up to stop this Wake Forest wide receiver core. They have 2 great wide receivers there. Jaquari Robertson, 43 receptions, 737 yards, 6 TDs. But the animal, A.T. Perry, big receiver. I want to say 6'4", 6'5", 36 receptions, 716 yards, 8 TDs. I believe they're going to put Grimes on him. Grimes is a long cornerback, still young, only a sophomore, but I think he has a skill set to give them some issues. But you still got to deal with Christian Beal-Smith. They're going to run the ball. Wake Forest will, and he has 492 yards and 7 touchdowns. It's just Sam Hartman. Back to him, 2,475 yards passing, 22 touchdowns, and you combine that with 207 yards rushing with 6 TDs. Just a stud, But yeah, Sam Howell or Sam Hartman. Some people would have definitely thought the team that's going to be 8-0 with a quarterback named Sam would have been the UNC team coming out of Carolina. Nope, it's the team that's coming out of Wake Forest. I got Wake winning 45-29, and I want to hear what you got to say about that, Lorenz.
Yeah, I mean, Wake Forest, they've been the much better football team this year, and they've had the much more efficient offense. I think Sam Howell has struggled a little bit without some of his weapons that have went to the NFL that he had such a good rapport with, that he could just trust to get the football up with the great accuracy that he does possess and go get it. He really plays the way that he knows that he's predetermining where he's going pre-snap, really 95% of his dropbacks. And he just hasn't had the playmakers to do that as much this season. I think he's someone who's going to have to continue to grow mentally to become a better quarterback. I would advise him to stay in school for another year because I think he did have first round aspirations coming into the season. It just hasn't been enough this year to get anywhere close to that. Really, so he's really had a down year, and on the other side, Wake Forest, they've kind of come out of nowhere. Don't look now, but if they come out of the ACC as ACC champions and unbeaten, couple of teams ahead of them might slip up. They're not out of the college football playoff run, as crazy as it sounds. They really are not. So I just straight up have to watch more of this team because I just didn't really buy it. And then you look up in like early September and here they are. So it's really impressive. Down year for the ACC, Wake Forest taking full advantage, and they got to keep going here. They suddenly have this chance, and it's pretty special. I mean, I think at least they're looking pretty for one of those New Year's Six bowls. But yeah, I mean, UNC, it's all about how much Sam Howell can make happen. But I think Wake Forest wins this game, as you said. Probably by what'd you say you have by 10?
I got 45-29. So
oh wow,
16.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay, I think they could keep it a tad bit closer. The Tar Heels there, if they can get Ty Chandler going a little bit. I mean, that defense hasn't been great this year either, and Wake Forest is going to take advantage. But no slight losing to this Wake Forest team this year. They're good.
Yeah, I know it was only Army, but they put up. I mean, and Army's not a bad team. It's just they put up 70 points on Army. They've been putting up just these incredible numbers, on these teams, and I seen it firsthand when they dragged UVA, in Charlottesville. And UVA is not a bad football team. They just have real issues with their defense. But I tell you, that slow mesh offense, the quarterback rides the running back for a long time until the last second. He'll either pull it and throw it or he'll hand it off. I don't know. I'm surprised other colleges don't keep doing this. Go ahead, Lorenz.
It's awful to watch, man. But I think defenses think the same thing, and that's why they're just like, just let them have it, I guess. Nah, but I hate watching it, but it's definitely effective. I mean, they've been doing this for a couple of years now, really optimizing it. And Sam Hartman, he's been smart. He's really been able to take advantage of this elongated mesh that really makes defenders stuck in places. And at the end of the day, if you can make football and offensive football, putting one defender at odds and then just read off of him, that's great. That's awesome. I mean, can't make it much easier than that. And that's really what they're doing. That's what they're able to create. Doesn't look pretty. Doesn't look great for anyone watching, at least in my opinion. Let me know if you feel differently about it. But if you put up 70 points, I can't argue with it.
Well, what he's doing is he's reading them. Whenever they're running this slow mesh, he's reading the end man on the line of scrimmage if they're running it towards the edge, and then he's also reading through the outside receiver, and he's reading the guy in the middle. So he's actually reading multiple guys instead of just reading the guy on the end. That's why it's taking so long, and it's effective. But you got to have a special quarterback that can run it. Go ahead, Lorenz.
And it really prevents your defense from being aggressive, from bringing a lot of pressure from the second level and things of that nature. You really got to be patient. You can't have mental mistakes, mental errors as a defense. And I think that's what's making it so effective at the college level.
Absolutely. And they do have these 4 games left. They got Carolina. They got NC State. They have Clemson. And they have Boston College. I mean, they could run that table. You're right. They could go undefeated. And I think if they go undefeated, they'll be, in that they'll be the number, maybe the number 14. Because if Clemson ran the table, why couldn't Wake Forest be there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on what these other teams do. It depends on what Oklahoma does, what Oregon does, Ohio State, Cincinnati, Michigan State down the road. But if these Big Ten teams can kind of beat themselves up a little bit, maybe Oklahoma slips up, it could be coming down to them or Cincinnati. And we know the committee would rather put an ACC team in there, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, we're kind of looking, one ACC, a Cincinnati, and then the two big boys, Alabama and Georgia. But we'll talk about that a little later. Slick Polito, what do you got to talk about? What do you got to say about this game?
I mean, what you guys said, it kind of sums it up. This Wake Forest team's got to run the table, but it's not inconceivable. Now, they do have the tougher part of this ACC schedule left here. There's some teams in there that are no joke. And even Clemson, who has been down this year, is still not a joke. But if you looked at this, all the teams in the Carolinas before the year and had to pick one to come out of this conference, I would not have said Wake Forest, but here they are, undefeated.
I would have said NC State as well before Wake Forest, but they're showing out and they're doing a great job of putting a great product as far as winning on the field, and we'll see how it shakes out. Another game at noon that will be on ABC, and I'll be checking that out. And UNC being a 2.5 point favorite, I think there's some trickery going on right there, behind the scenes on that. But coming into the next game, we got UTSA, University of Texas San Antonio against UTEP. Another UT Texas El Paso playing at 10:15 p.m. on ESPN2. Undefeated UTSA is 11-point favorite. Hunter, talk to me about this game. Not too many, of undefeated teams left, and this is one of them.
Yeah, and let's also not forget that Kenneth Walker was on Wake Forest last year too, and then transferred. So that team would have been even crazier if he was still there. But then looking at this game, I think this is the best game of the week that no one is talking about. I know that San Antonio is quite upset that they were not included in the college football playoff rankings, and I think they're gonna have something to prove as a result going against this really good UTEP defense, who are 6-2. They're having a really good season as well. I think the matchup to watch is going to be El Paso's run defense versus Sincere McCormick, who, first off, great name, but he's 11th in the country with 891 rushing yards, and then the Miners are 11th in the country with 97 yards per game. So something's going to have to give in that matchup. We'll see who gets the upper hand there. And then the Miners need to also stop San Antonio native himself, Frank Harris. He's 16-6 in his career. That's the best start any quarterback's had in Roadrunners history. 16 touchdowns and just 3 interceptions. Their offense is averaging 39.4 points per game. And then UTEP's defense is 6th in the country in total defense allowed. So there's definitely a lot of good clashing of the Titans here, if you will. This is going to be a very good game if you want to stay up late and watch some good late night football. Definitely Texas is the place to be. And then I think a player to look out for as well is Jacob Cohen. He has 5 100-yard games this season, the wide receiver. That's definitely a guy who could perhaps, in a big game like this, improve his draft stock.
Absolutely could be. This game was a little bit
good
more
game to watch from a running back standpoint as well. And now I got my man. And then, of course, I got to get to Alec. Talk to me, Alec, about this game. Got anything you want to add to that?
Well, yeah, this game was a little bit more exciting when UTSA was number 16 in the country. Obviously, the college football playoff rankings come out, and they definitely put an emphasis on strength of schedule, which knocked them out of the top 25 here. But this is still a really competitive matchup, 8-0 versus 6-2. I think this is going to be a fun game to watch, especially you're talking about a 10-15 at night. Not a lot of other games going on. So this might be a game you want to tune into. And Sincere McCormick is a really good football player. Should be getting, I know you mentioned him, Hunter, but he should be getting a ton of respect and good matchup for him tape-wise as well. I want to see him against a better defense for sure.
Well, Lorenz, you want to add anything to this game as well?
Yeah, I think you got to give some credit also to UTSA head coach Jeff Traylor, who only started coaching collegiate football in 2015 with the Texas Longhorns. He was a special teams coach there, went to SMU, coached running backs, did the same at Arkansas, and then in 2020 he took over the UTSA program. Last year they went 7-5, lost in the First Responders Bowl, but this season they've been excellent. They've been awesome. Really one of the younger, bright coaches, bright coaching minds in the entire country. And Jeff Traylor's doing an outstanding job there. We'll see if he can keep the Road Runners running. So here against the UTEP Miners.
Yeah, one of the cooler mascots in college football. I love the Roadrunners. Coming back at you, Lorenz, we got the next game. We got Mississippi State against Arkansas. You know how Arkansas has fallen. There were some high hopes for that team earlier in the year. They were ranked, but now it seems like they're trying to save a little face going against Mississippi State. The game is at 4 p.m. on the SEC Network. Arkansas is the favorite, about 4.5. Give me your preview about on this game, Lorenz.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about it, and they can get back to being ranked, I think, if they win this football game. But it's definitely going to be a fun one against number 17, Mississippi State. Sam Pittman, I still like what he's doing there. Obviously, both these coaches in their second year. You got Mike Leach on the one side, bringing the air raid offense to the SEC. We just talked about offenses that make life on the quarterback a little bit easier with the elongated mesh there. This is another one with the air raid. It's a numbers game really for them, so a little bit different. But let's start off with Arkansas. Sam Pittman, that offense. I think KJ Jefferson has really been a lot better than I expected going into the season. The big quarterback, 6'3". I think 250 pounds by now. Just eye check. They list him at 245, but I'll give him those 5 pounds. I think we're dealing with a 250 quarterback here, and you can really see it on the ground, averaging more than 5 yards per carry. They love that quarterback draw, and he will lower that shoulder. He will pick up an extra 2 yards falling forward, and only 3 interceptions on the year. He's really pushing the ball downfield in crucial spots. And Treylon Burks is a great player to look for downfield, to search and find downfield. He's doing a great job of getting the ball to him. He might be the first wide receiver off the board. I think the size that he brings, the speed, the athleticism to go up and get the football ability. Not a refined route runner, but we've seen with guys like Chase Claypool, for example, you don't necessarily have to be if you can do that much on a vertical route tree and win the ball in the air as he can. He's just physically dominant. We talk about the big 11-inch hands, big meaty claws. I know I dropped that line before. Treylon Burks, one of my favorite players in college football. They got 2 interesting underclassmen on Arkansas. Center Ricky Stromberg, I think, is one of the more underrated players in the entire SEC and the entire draft, potentially, if he does decide to come out. Really one of the guys that I think Sam Pittman's done a great job with. He's strong. He's smart. I think he can be a guard or center at the next level. Really solid draft class at both these positions, and I think he adds to it. And then same with safety, Jalen Catalon. We've talked a lot about these safeties. He's someone who flies around, who does a lot in underneath zones. Really looking for him to tackle more consistently. That's the big knock I have on him. He will come downhill. He will lay the boom a couple times, but then he'll also have some bad misses, which has really hurt this team in the past. But he can be a playmaker if he can straighten that out. Just be aggressive and throw your shoulder around at the right times when you can afford to, and sometimes you just gotta wrap up. Big senior matchup is Arkansas left tackle Myron Cunningham, who's been a staple of consistency there, going up against rush linebacker Tyrus Wheat on Mississippi State. Both these guys are on All-Star game radars. Are going to be out there, one of the big 3. And then Charles Cross might be the first pick off the board in this entire matchup. He's the left tackle for Mississippi State. Went into the season with weight and strength concerns. I didn't know how well he would hold up to the bull rush. He was in the weight room all offseason. He's added muscle. He's added strength, and he's gotten a lot better at that. Still not a finished product, but if you talk about his technique, if you talk about his athleticism, I think he has the makings of being one of the better pass protectors, one of the better blindside protectors in the entire NFL, and we know how important that is. And you just said, man, Arkansas's favored in this one. I think Arkansas, that physical attacking type of offense, and that how well KJ Jefferson has been playing, and then this defense that is a 3-3-5 that is a lot more suited to play this air raid offense. I think they got a good chance of winning this game. They're at home. I'm actually picking the Razorbacks, getting back on track. I don't think they ever left. They just had a couple rough games. A couple balls could have bounced their way, and I'm sticking with my guys here. I'm sticking with the squad, and I think they pull out a narrow victory. But this one should be a close one. Should be a fun game.
When you talk big meaty claws, you also mean large catch radius. You know what I mean?
No doubt. And you put the ball up there, he'll get at the highest point. He'll high point the football with that catch radius. If it's a little behind, he can make that adjustment. No question about it.
Let me ask you this. I mean, we've been talking for 2 months now, doing our shows every Saturday, and we're talking about this safety class. You keep adding safeties to this class, Lorenz. How many safeties are we up to now? I guess let me ask this. In the first 4 rounds, how many safeties are you looking at going?
Oh, man, 4 rounds.
I'm going to need that from you too, Polito and Hunter. So think about this while Lorenz comes up with his number.
It's a lot. This is a deep safety class. I mean, there's a ton of guys that are going to have first round hype, but it's really going to, as we saw last year, it's going to be dependent on team fit. There's not every safety fits every team, so we will have a lot of safeties that don't make sense for some teams that will. I mean, there's one guaranteed in the first round, and that's Kyle Hamilton. As for the first 4 rounds, I'd say you're probably looking at 7 to 8 guys that really could fit in that range. And then I think there'll be a decent amount on day 3. But, when you talk about it, this year, Lorenz and I discussed it. It's a little bit of a weird year because it's not the positions that are really deep and really really fun to evaluate right now are defense. It's not the flashy positions, it's defense. The edge position this year is phenomenally deep. The safeties are phenomenally deep. The wide receiver class is decent and pretty good, but it's not. We're not looking at the stacked quarterback class, the stacked running back class. This is going to be a really good defensive class. So it could push a couple of them back just because it's so deep there, and teams are going to be looking to find that offensive playmaker. But I still think that 7 or 8 guys could end up in that top 4 rounds, maybe even more. I might be underestimating it, but we've talked about 7 or 8 guys that are potential first round guys at that safety position. So we'll see. It's all going to be team fit.
Lorenz, how many you think, man?
I'm going to go with 11, maybe 12. You want to hear them?
Wow. Yeah, let's go.
All right, we're going with Kyle Hamilton, Notre Dame, first-round lock. Lewis Cine, Georgia, good shot of being a first-round pick. Daxton Hill, Michigan, same thing. You can flip-flop those guys who you like at number 2. 4, Brandon Joseph, might not declare, but I'm keeping him on here for now. Better 2020 than 2021, but still a very gifted player. Jordan Battle over at Alabama is a really solid and instinctive classic Alabama safety who tackles well, does a lot of the right things. Jaquan Brisker might have been the most clutch player in the entire country the first month of the season over there at Penn State. Damani Richardson at Texas A&M is sneaky, having a good season. Not a lot of draft nicks talking about him. They should be. Bubba Bolden, a 6'3" over at Miami and a very good athlete. He can be up and down, but I think someone's going to like the trades. Jalen Catalon, Arkansas, we just talked about. If he can tackle, he can be a lot higher on this list than 9. 10, Verone McKinley, super smart player. I think he's going to be a nickel. Over there at Oregon, I think he's going to be a nickel in the NFL, but he's one of the smartest and best leaders in the safety class. And then 11, I'm going with Jalen Pitre from Baylor, who's also going to be that kind of nickel, second-level defender type, who is also very smart, more of an underneath cover guy already in college, who I think has a lot of qualities that teams like, for example, the Ravens are going to like. So I could see him going in the top 4. And then if you want to hear a 12th guy, Chris Smith over at Georgia, extremely smart, instinctive, but he's 5'10", 185. So we'll see how they value him. Maybe a coach-driven organization could take him as high.
Yeah, we're going to have to break it up between Freeze and Strong's And maybe hybrids, as well. The way the safety position is going, you got, your frees, your strongs naturally, but then you got to have kind of your hybrid safety nowadays as well, who can cover tight ends, who can play somewhat of a little bit of a linebacker, but also can cover in space. Because of the way that these offenses are opening up in the pros. Hunter, anything you want to add to that? I know we kind of, picked everything off. We got, we buzzard the subject, picked all the meat off for you. But anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, well, Lorenz is like damn near named every top safety in the draft, so I'm not going to do that. But I will say I'm very curious to see how these teams evaluate the position. I always think the safety is like the tight end of defense because it's like they're asked to do so many different things. But some teams are like, hey, let's take a guy in the top 10. And other teams like, we're waiting until day 2, we're waiting until day 3 to find a value. And so I'm really interested to see because the players themselves will probably get underdrafted because of the position that they play and how deep it is. But I think some teams are going to get really good values late in the draft.
Well, I'm looking forward to that. Like I said, I really want to see, when we get a little deeper into the season and we break down free, strongs, and hybrids. So, we'll keep a check on that as well. In our last game of the day, we got USC and Arizona, another late game, 10:30 p.m. on ESPN. Arizona State is an 8.5-point favorite. Alex Slick Polito, talk to me. Give me your preview on this game.
Yeah, another quarterback battle here, but almost the exact opposite situation where we had, Matt Corral and Malik Willis rising up boards. Keaton Slovis and Jaden Daniels have been consistently falling down boards. A guy, and I don't know who on this panel, but someone here had Keaton Slovis as their number 1 quarterback going into the year. Unfortunate for them. But no, both these guys have some talent. But it's just been a disappointing year, to say the least, for the two of them. Now, Keaton Slovis has shown some flashes, and I still think that he's got a shot. He's going to have to stay in school another year, whether that be at USC or transfer somewhere, because they do have Jackson Dart sitting behind him that I think that they do want to get involved. Potentially a new head coach might want to get another guy in there. But I still think Keaton Slovis has a ton of talent, and I still think he has a shot. Jaden Daniels hasn't looked as impressive as people thought he was going to be 2 years ago, but he still also has some talent. Now, this is going to be a big game for Keaton Slovis because he's without Drake London, and he's going to be without Drake London for the rest of the season. Drake London has done enough for his stock. You'll be hearing his name called fairly early in the 2022 NFL Draft, but Slovis is going to have to show that he can do it without that talent because that is a tremendous talent in college football to be missing. Keontae Ingram has shown flashes, so we'll see if he can get going today. And this ASU defense has been very good this season, and they're led by guys like Merlin Robertson, Jack Jones, DeAndre Pierce, some really good players on this defense. To name a few, there's more on this defense as well that have really been solid for this ASU team and they've held strong and kind of carried this team to a 5-3 record. Now this offense has been fine too. Jaden Daniels obviously being the main guy, but Donovan West, one of the most exciting offensive linemen in the 2022 NFL Draft that doesn't get enough hype. Shout out to Corey Ezring, who has been on this kid since the summer. He's a phenomenal player that might hear his name called in the first round. I believe he's playing. I actually haven't seen him this year yet, but I believe he's playing guard for them. But I think his outlook is definitely guard for the league from what I saw over the summer. And he played some phenomenal football last year. They're going to have to try and control the pocket here. They're going to have to try and dominate up front. And this defense for USC has been disappointing, but is star-studded. There's a ton of really good players on this defense. They just haven't really put it together yet. Drake Jackson, of course, being the big name there, has a shot at being a first-round pick. Isaac Polamayo, or Isaiah Polamayo, jumped the gun. Isaac Taylor Stewart is also a corner for USC, who's a phenomenal player. And then Raylan Goforth, the linebacker. All these guys are really good players. They're going to have to try and slow down this ASU offense. I really wish this USC team had put it together because there's so much talent all around, but they just didn't. Obviously, Clay Helton is now out. And this is a team that's probably going to have to, all these players aren't going to have their chance to compete because they're going to have to build it again. It's unfortunate, but another huge Pac-12 matchup here. I think that USC actually wins this game, and maybe it's a homer pick, but I'm picking USC to win this game, and I think that Keaton Slovis is going to show up. He's going to prove that guy right who had him as QB1 early in the year. Keaton Slovis is going to show up against this really good ASU defense.
Well, you got to figure also, this is the top college coaching gig available, regardless of, what the condition the program's in. This is a top 5 job, and, there's going to be a lot of people shooting for it, when the season's over. And I know that USC is doing their due diligence to get the right person there. Lorenz, anything you want to add to this game?
Yeah, USC's had a real rough one. I mean, what a rough season. Now they lose their star receiver Drake London to a season-ending injury, who could have been the first receiver off the board. Still could, maybe, depending on how he can test and how he can perform in the spring. But I'm taking ASU in this one. I just think that defense is too fundamentally sound, coached by Antonio Pierce, who is one of the better young minds, I think, on the defensive side, who's gonna get a Power 5 head coaching job, hopefully soon here. But he's doing a great job over at Arizona State. I think that offense, especially senior running back Rashad White, is another big runner with power, with speed, can give you some troubles. And I think Arizona State's got more talent. They're better coached. And at the end of the day, they're at home as well. So I think they're gonna win this Pac-12 after dark showdown.
What do you think about that, Hunter? Anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, well, Rashad White coming back is a huge get for the Sun Devils because he's been out for a little bit. Has 9 touchdowns this season, so hopefully that kind of sparks their offense and gives Daniel some help there. So it's not just on relying on him, who, like you've said, Alex, has been struggling and kind of peaked his freshman year in college football. As there's always a saying, when you have 2 quarterbacks, you have none. And so Keaton Slovis competing with Jackson Dart here. I know you're kind of confident, Alex. I don't know if you're just kind of riding your preseason predictions here, but they've been splitting reps recently in games. So I'm not so sure Slovis is going to be the guy there for that much longer. Perhaps he transfers or something like that. But USC, they might be the most sorry program in college football right now. I don't know how they've never been able to get their act together since Carroll left, considering that they're in sunny Los Angeles and have all these resources, especially with the NIL. You think a lot of people want to play there and get that exposure and clout, if you would. So I think this will be a very good head coaching opportunity, but let's see if they get it right.
Absolutely. Yeah, they better. But I know the guy that they come in, he better be ready for Hollywood because USC really has the resources to do anything that they damn well please. And but we'll be checking that game out 10:30 on ESPN, the late game, 8.5 favorite ASU. So right now we're getting ready to do our scout matchup of the week, and I'll go ahead and kick it off. I'll start. My scout matchup of the week naturally is going to be UNC and Wake Forest. That game. Of course, what I mean by that is that slow mesh point, what we spent about 10 minutes talking about, what we hate. The slow mesh point. If you have a team that runs the slow mesh point and they're running pretty much RPO at you, you got to be able to lock the receivers up on the outside. That's going to come down to Tony Grimes, Cameron Kelly, and Don Chapman locking up A.T. Perry, Jakari Robinson, and the tight end and the slot receiver for Wake Forest. So if you can do yourself a favor and lock up these outside receivers and who's ever running down the seam, you can somewhat try to take care of that slow mesh point, attack the mesh, and try to keep the quarterback and the running back inside the pocket as far as running some of the zone schemes. So it's got to be the passing or the cornerbacks against UNC stopping the receivers on the outside so that Sam Hartman has to either hand it off or carry it. They're almost running like a triple option kind of an offense with that slow mesh. Coming to you, Lorenz, what is your scouting matchup of the week?
Yeah, I'm staying down south. Everyone knows I'm a massive SEC fan. LSU versus Alabama might not be a close game, but I'm looking forward for this matchup here between the LSU offensive line against this Alabama defensive line. I think LSU up front, they got a number of future NFL players, and Ed Ingram, the left guard, Liam Shanahan, the center, and then right tackle Austin Deculus, who I'm really looking forward, though, is right guard Chasen Hines, who's a really big, thick guard in the 330s. You can head over to our friends at Bama Central on SI to read the scouting report on Chasen Hines, who I'm a fan of. You know, he's been out with injuries for a couple of weeks now. They've really missed him in a couple of games up front, but he's a really good player. He's another senior. He can create movement up front, but he's not going to have it easy against Alabama. They got the two stud underclassmen, I think, on that defensive line, Byron Young and Justin Eboigbe. Both these guys can play with length. They're athletic. They're powerful. Fedarian Mathis is a senior who's very good. He's just technically sound. I think he's turned his motor up a notch this season, really with the NFL in mind, trying to make more of an impact in the backfield. And then LeBron Ray, if this guy's healthy, former 5-star recruit, he can be a game wrecker, and they rotate him in and out on passing downs. He's going to give these guys up front a lot of troubles. And I haven't even gotten into the underclassmen, into the Will Andersons, because I'm just trying not to, because then I'll start comparing all these other guys in this tremendous edge rusher class to him. But he will be for next year. He's going to be a stud, and I think he's really decisively won the matchup against anyone he's gone up against. But a lot of NFL players in both these trench matchups to watch in this SEC showdown.
Talk to me, Hunter. Give me your scouting matchup of the week.
Well, ironically, I also went the Alabama LSU route. It's crazy to think that we didn't even cover this game this week. That just shows you how bad LSU's been this season. But they still got a lot of really talented players, though. I'm going to go with the game within the game, though. Damon Clark versus Brian Robinson Jr. And I know Bryce Love gets all the love and all the praise, and rightfully so, but Robinson Jr., he's trying to cement himself, too, and be one of these all-time great Bama running backs that they've had in that long lineage that they've had over the last 10 or so years. Averaging 115 rushing yards per game in the SEC. That's an SEC game. So he has played great against probably the toughest competition anyone can go up against in college football. 10 rushing touchdowns as well. And Damon Clark leads the country, averaging 12 tackles a game. He even had 19. That's right, 19 last week against Ole Miss. So I think that these are two really talented players. A player who's great running the ball and a player who's great at stopping the run. So I think that this will be a very exciting matchup to go watch.
All right, and Mr. Polito, give me your scouting matchup of the week.
Yeah, I'm going to this Texas-Iowa State game here, and matchup for both sides. This Texas defense led by DeMarvion Overshone against two guys on this Iowa State offense that I'm really excited to watch against, Brock Purdy and Breece Hall. I think that both these players, this is pretty good tape for them. Obviously, Brock Purdy has had some up games. He's had some down games. Well, this is a on the I guess in the spotlight type game against Texas here, and DeMarvion Overshone is a guy who has impressed me in the small sample size that I've gotten from him, and I'd like to see him against a running back like Breece Hall, a big running back, where they might have a couple goes at it, or even just against this defense going against Brock Purdy. I think these are two matchups for him that'll be fun to watch. Obviously, he being that in that like hybrid linebacker type role, he's going to have to go against both these guys, and that's a matchup that I'm really looking forward to seeing today.
Absolutely. So now that we're done with our overtime, we're going to get into our closing statements. Hunter, I'm going to start with you. Anything you got to say in closing?
It's great to be back on the show again. Very interesting. A lot of these money lines. A lot of ranked teams going on the road are actually underdogs. Like you said, with Wake Forest and Mississippi State. So if I'm a betting man, I might have to bet with the better teams here, despite them being on the road.
All right, coming to you, Polito. Anything in closing you want to say? Closing statement.
Yeah, if you find yourself needing a little break from college football today, go watch CF1 Esports on Twitch, where we'll be having the first couple rounds of the finals today for the Diamond and Below division. I'll be there in the comments section, so come come hang with me. I'll also be watching college football, so we can talk about that too.
Ain't no doubt about it. And then we're going to the Senior Scout. What's going on, Lorenz? What do you got to
Man,
say in closing?
That sounds like a heck of a time getting to bother Alec
Right?
in a chat room. I mean, I might just take full advantage of that offer. But what I want to say? You can go watch Kellen Gerenstein play quarterback today. I think kicking off at, I want to say 12. Then it already has. No. I'm getting time zones mixed up. We're in winter time now. You guys aren't, but I think it's kicking off at 12 or 1. And you can type it into Google. Just Google Ohio State club football live stream, and you can go watch Kellen play quarterback, which is something you absolutely should want to do.
Repeat that again.
You can go watch Kellen play quarterback on a live stream if you
Absolute dual threat.
I'll send. He's a dual threat, man. If you guys saw the stat line last week, 3 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns.
I think it was the other way around.
Dynamic out there.
Send it in, man.
Yeah, I think it was like 159 yards rushing and 3 rushing touchdowns, and then it was like he's like 17 for 20 something or 32.
Head over to my Twitter. I'll be tweeting it out in like 10 minutes after we end the show. I'll find it and I'll tweet it out. You can go watch dual threat quarterback Kellen Gerenstein and stars
of the NFL. Look, of the NFL, yes, of the NFL Draft Bible, our team quarterback for sure. We're looking forward to that.
That's my quarterback.
So, exactly, that's my quarterback, man. So as we got this, guys, the NFL Draft Bible is growing, and just like Alex said, with the esports platform that we're on, and there's a whole bunch of things coming into 2022. But first, let's get this draft class out of here before we get into anything else. But keep in mind, to catch up with any of us on any of our platforms, we're on Twitter, Twitch, Facebook. Go to si.com/NFL/draft to catch up with me. My closing statement is just saying we got less than an hour before the kickoff of these 2 most important games at noon. We love you guys. Appreciate all you viewers and listeners for checking in with us and hanging out. We can't do this without you. And go out there and watch some football today and enjoy this Saturday. Peace.